There's a child standing in a kitchen. There's a broken cookie jar on the floor. The child looks at the parent and says, "I don't know what happened." The parent knows, the child knows, the parent knows. The child knows, the parent knows, the child knows. And yet, the lie still gets told. Now here's the thing. That moment, that specific transaction, didn't begin in your kitchen, or your parents' kitchen, or even in human history. The first lie told on this planet happened before language existed, before words, before any human being had a name for what they were doing. And what's stranger is this. The lie didn't start as something evil. It started as a survival tool so powerful that the animals who used it lived longer, ate better, and left more offspring than the ones who didn't. Deception didn't corrupt nature. In many ways, it built it. To understand when humans started lying, you have to understand something first. Lying didn't begin with humans. It began with life itself. There's an orchid in Europe called the bee orchid. It produces no nectar. It has no food to offer any insect. But its petals evolved over millions of years to look and smell almost exactly like a female bee. Male bees land on it trying to mate. While they're confused and frustrated, the flower covers them in pollen. The bee flies to the next orchid. Pollination complete. The flower just ran a con. It offered something it didn't have, got exactly what it needed, and the bee paid the price. This isn't rare. An estimated 1/3 of all flowering plant species use deceptive strategies to attract pollinators. Some mimic rotting flesh to attract flies. Some vibrate at a frequency that fools insects into thinking they've found food. The natural world is saturated with deception at every level. But plants don't think, they don't choose to lie. The deception is built into their biology. The question is, when did a brain get involved? In the 1980s, a primatologist named Frans de Waal was observing a group of chimpanzees at a research facility in the Netherlands. One male, a younger chimp named Dandy, discovered a hidden cache of grapefruit that researchers had buried as part of an experiment. But a dominant male was nearby. Dandy looked at the food, then he looked at the dominant male, then he walked away. He walked in the completely opposite direction. He showed nothing. He waited until the dominant male left the area, then he came back alone and ate everything. Dandy didn't stumble on the food and accidentally walk away. He made a calculated decision to suppress information. He understood that showing excitement would reveal what he knew. He concealed his emotional response, waited, and acted when it was safe. That is not reflex, that is a plan. And Dandy wasn't unusual. De Waal documented dozens of similar cases. Chimps regularly use what he called tactical deception. They fake injuries to gain sympathy. They produce alarm calls when there's no predator, just to scatter rivals away from food. They pretend to be uninterested in a mate to avoid aggression from dominant males, then circle back later. What this tells us is remarkable. By the time the first humans appeared, the cognitive architecture for lying was already millions of years old. We didn't invent deception, we inherited it, but here's where it gets more interesting. If every animal capable of deception was already doing it, why did humans become so dramatically better at it than almost everything else? The answer might be the most counterintuitive thing about human intelligence. We got smarter because we lied to each other. In 1976, a British anthropologist named Robin Dunbar proposed what became known as the social brain hypothesis. His argument was simple. The reason human brains grew so large wasn't to solve physics problems or build tools. It was to keep track of other humans. Specifically, to track who was lying to whom. Think about what it takes to live in a large social group. You have to remember who helped you last week, who betrayed someone else, who is pretending to be your ally while working against you, who owes you something and who you owe something to. You have to model what other people know, what they think you know, and what they think you think they know. Psychologists call this theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts, beliefs, and intentions that are different from yours. And here's the crucial part. Theory of mind is the exact same cognitive tool you need to lie effectively. To deceive someone, you have to model their mental state accurately enough to know what they'll believe. The bigger the social group, the more complex the web of relationships. The more complex the web, the bigger the brain needed to navigate it. Dunbar calculated that human neocortex size correlates almost perfectly with social group size across primate species. Chimps live in groups of around 50. Humans naturally organize into groups of around 150. Exactly what you'd predict if brain size was driven by social complexity. We didn't get big brains and then form complex societies. We formed complex societies and grew the brains to survive them. And deception was the pressure driving all of it. So when did the first fully human lie happen? Nobody can point to a date. There's no fossil record for a thought, but archaeologists and cognitive scientists have pieced together a rough timeline based on the evidence that deception leaves behind. The earliest indirect evidence comes from around 1.7 million years ago. Homo erectus, one of our evolutionary ancestors, was making stone tools, but researchers analyzing these tools found something strange. Many of them were being made from materials that didn't exist anywhere near where they were found. The stone had been carried, sometimes for over 100 kilometers. That means Homo erectus was planning ahead far enough to collect materials for future use. Planning for the future requires modeling future situations in your mind, and the ability to model future situations is the same machinery that powers deliberate deception. The brain capable of thinking, "I'll need this later," is also capable of thinking, "If I say this now, they'll believe something false later." But the clearest evidence of deception as a social strategy appears much later, around 100,000 years ago, when modern humans began trading across long distances with groups they'd never met before. Long-distance trade requires trust between strangers, and trust between strangers creates the perfect environment for deception. When you trade with someone you'll never see again, the consequences of cheating are much lower. Archaeologists found evidence of standardized tokens and early symbolic markers at these ancient trade sites. Researchers believe these may have been early systems for tracking reputation, essentially, primitive records of who could be trusted. You don't build a system for tracking trust unless lying is already a serious enough problem that it needs to be managed. The first reputation system is proof that deception had already become sophisticated enough to threaten social cooperation. By 100,000 years ago, humans weren't just lying, they were building institutions to catch liars. Now here's the part nobody talks about. The most powerful lie in human history wasn't told by a single person. It was told collectively, by everyone, and we still tell it today. In 2011, a historian and philosopher named Yuval Noah Harari argued something that initially sounds offensive, but becomes harder to dismiss the more you think about it. He said that the thing separating humans from every other animal isn't our tools, or our language, or our ability to cooperate. It's our ability to believe in things that don't exist. Money is a lie. A dollar bill is a piece of paper. It has no intrinsic value. It cannot feed you or shelter you or protect you, but because everyone agrees to believe in it, it functions as if it's real. The same is true for nations, laws, companies, religions, and human rights. None of these things exist in the physical world. They exist because humans collectively agreed to act as if they do. A chimpanzee cannot be convinced that a banana belongs to a different chimpanzee because of property law. The concept is invisible to them, but humans can organize millions of people around invisible concepts. And that collective belief in shared fictions is what allows human civilization to exist at all. The cognitive tool that started as a way for one primate to sneak food from another somehow scaled into the operating system of the entire human world. So when did humans first start lying? The honest answer is that we never started. We arrived into a world already built on deception, inherited the neural machinery from ancestors who used it to survive, and then did something no other species managed to do. We turned it into a civilization. Every social norm, every polite fiction, every time you say, "I'm fine," when you aren't, every currency in your wallet, every border on a map, these are all sophisticated descendants of a chimpanzee walking away from a pile of grapefruit with a blank expression on his face. The first lie wasn't malicious. It was just a mind realizing for the first time that what others believe can be different from what is true. And that gap, that tiny space between reality and belief, turned out to be the most powerful thing a brain ever discovered. We've been living inside that gap ever since. And the strangest part, the same brain that learned to deceive also invented confession, courts, journalism, and science. Entire systems built for one purpose only, to find out what's actually true. We built the tools to catch our own lies, which might be the most human thing we've ever done.